Howdy, friends. So we're going to take a peek at the One World Tarot by Lena Rodriguez and Sienna Rose with June Rifkin, illustrated by Alexandra Philippek. This is a newish deck from what I can tell, and I just saw it on the shelves and thought it looked like it deserved a glance, which I sometimes do when I don't have a lot of stuff to make for this channel and people, just want to sort of see what's going on. So this is not an unboxing. I've looked at this already. I've looked through the book. In my traditional fashion, I did not scour the book. It's not a book that necessarily I felt like needed that. But I will say it's actually a pretty good beginner book. Excuse me. So in terms of like a starting deck, it's not bad. The book really kind of goes through the basics of reading the cards. It doesn't necessarily require this deck. Obviously, they come together, but it's if you are interested in the book, it's a decent primer. I think they do a nice job of sort of giving you some keywords, a little bit about the card, and then some contexts for how to look at it in a reading, a personal view, a world view. And there's some spreads, and each card gets about 2 full pages. And again, it's very kind of, intro to tarot. So I think it's really nice. The cards are not the most beautiful cards you've ever seen, but they are sort of appropriate for a deck called the One World Tarot. I would say they're relatively representational, which I think is pretty good. I don't love the back of the card. It's giving a little bit of that fortune-telling deck that US Games shows or sells. But it's not bad. It's glossy. Can we highlight that here? Can we see the glossiness? There we go. So very glossy. It actually reminds me a lot of the cardstock of the current printing of the Voyager, which I will tell you, having worked with a little bit in the past few days, or actually really worked with a lot, it does eventually start to shuffle better. I have not shuffled this yet because I didn't feel like putting it back in order. So it is kind of a Waite Smith clone. I mean, it is absolutely a Waite Smith clone. But it is, again, sort of fairly good about depicting people of global majority. I would say there's nothing in this particular artwork that's revolutionary. Beyond that, it's some cards like this are really reinterpreted. Most aren't. But it's pretty good. I think it's not too bad. I mean, I kind of like that this Lover's card, again, is giving kind of a gender neutrality, a open space for gender, which I think is nice. And actually, the art is pretty good. I mean, it's not... I don't think this is, like, destined to become, a reader for me, necessarily. But there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think there's anything that I don't like other than the cardstock. It's the Waite Smith deck. It's very simple. I would say it's fairly de-Christianized for the most part. Again, there's not quite as much of a neutrality in the figures on the devil, but it's definitely closer. So it's nice. I think it's. I think if you're looking, I don't think that this is like a deck you need to run out and get necessarily. But I do think that if you have someone in your life who's sort of tarot curious, and they want to start reading, and you are a Waite Smith fan, or you want them to start learning Waite Smith, this isn't a bad choice. Again, there are some cards like this that are sort of surprisingly modern given the context, and then others kind of giving the traditional situation. So it's a little inconsistent. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's not my favorite thing, but it's pretty good. That's a beautiful puppy there. And I really don't see much in the way of fat people or disabled folks in the deck, which is for a pretty standard issue, but it is pretty representational in terms of race. Again, it's not the most dazzling art, but it's not bad, and it is one of those things where, like, this is one of those things where I do a video about, for folks who are like, oh, I just saw this, is it worth Is it worth it? You know what I mean? I think I don't like the idea of a beginner's deck. Like, I think anybody can read with any deck if it's interesting to them. They just need to learn how to do it, and they need to have a basic foundation of how they read. And it doesn't matter what that foundation is, just that they have one. You know, so I resist the idea that some decks are for beginners and some aren't. That said, this does sort of seem appropriate for a beginner because it's not necessarily full of the esoteric symbolism, and it's not it's recognizably Waite Smith, but it's obviously more representational than that. I love this sort of Mardi Gras king, and I think all the courts in this particular suit are New Orleans, which I love. Yep, there's Marie Laveau. So, not revolutionary in any sort of interpretive standpoint, but pretty good otherwise. And we'll shuffle it and see how it looks. It's nice. I think it's nice. I think, again, if you're looking to get a gift set for somebody, oh yeah, these are Venice. This might not be a bad idea. It's got a good book, a decent book. It's got nice cards. It's not all white. It's not all Christian. Let's shuffle and lace them out. And this glossy cardstock is never my favorite, but it does riffle awfully well. It's the putting them back together, but I do find that those can break in a little bit. So I think it's nice. You know what I mean? I think it's the book's pretty good. I think it's a good starting place. I don't think it's going to overwhelm anybody, which is a thing I think, beginners sometimes feel, is they feel overwhelmed. They feel like, what's that symbol? And, what about Aries and all of that? And, like, that can just get in the way for a lot of folks sometimes. So I don't think this will do that. It's colorful, too, in a way that a lot of Waite Smith editions aren't. So maybe this is a good first deck. Maybe it's a good alt if you're like a Waite Smith stan and there aren't a lot of decks that you appreciate in that vein. And it doesn't shuffle too bad. You maybe could use some fanning powder or something to loosen things up, but I don't even think you need it. I think it would get pretty good after a while. So, this is going to be a short review because there's not a whole lot to say about this deck, but I think it's nice. If I were going to do a class on Waite Smith Tarot specifically for beginners, as I do, I tend to ask everyone to work with the same deck. I might choose this. I actually have a few other decks that I find sort of prettier that I might select other than this. But actually, there's nothing wrong with this at all. And I think, in fact, to have a far more representational Waite Smith deck, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't read with this. You know what I mean? Other than that, I don't work with straight Waite Smith all that much. It's pretty good. I think it's nice. I think they did a good job. So nothing bad to say about this. Even the cardstock, which isn't my favorite, shuffles pretty nicely. Really decent, chunky book with a lot of basics in it. And it's packaged nicely. It's an expensive deck. I think it's more expensive than it should be for something like this. And in fact, the it retails at $32, but I've seen it in a store for more. And I think I paid less because I ordered it on Amazon. Because if I thought it wasn't worth looking at, I was going to send it back. But I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think, nicely done. So that's the One World Tarot. Lena Rodriguez and Sienna Rose with June Rifkin. Illustrations by Alexandra Filipek. And it's out now in the stores. I've seen it sort of in a couple places. So enjoy, my friends. Take care, be good, and we will talk soon.